hope you're having a great day. Today we're making 3 delicious meals that are perfect for fall. We're making some pumpkin cinnamon coffee cake muffins, we're making some spicy chicken ramen, and we're making some chicken penne Alfredo pasta. So let's jump right in with the pumpkin cinnamon coffee cake muffins with cinnamon honey butter. First thing you're going to do is take 3/4 cup of salted butter and go ahead and melt that. You can do that on the stovetop or in the microwave. I think the microwave's faster, so that's what I did. Next, you're going to add 3/4 cup of packed light brown sugar. To that, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I just eyeball it. I almost always eyeball vanilla extract. I feel like you can't have too much, and I'm probably not going to add too little. So that's what I did. And then you're going to mix all of that together until it's well combined and smooth. Next, we're going to add 2 eggs, and again, just whisk those in to combine them into the brown sugar butter mixture. Next, we're adding the star ingredient. They are pumpkin coffee cake muffins, so we're adding 1 cup of pumpkin puree, and then next we're going to be adding 1/4 cup of milk, and then just stir again until it becomes a pretty smooth, fluffy batter. Next, we're going to add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. We're adding 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. Next, we're adding 2 teaspoons of baking powder. After that, we're going to be adding 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Next, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, and the last ingredient is 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So now that all of the dry ingredients have been added to the wet ingredients, you're going to whisk that together, and it's going to become a pretty fluffy batter again at that point, adding the dry ingredients. You do just want to mix it until it's well combined so that you don't have dense muffins. So just until the flour mixture is combined with the pumpkin mixture. The next thing we're going to do is grease the muffin pan. I use the Pam baking spray. I feel like that works really well. I think the recipe actually calls for melted butter, but that just seemed like a lot of butter and a lot more work. So I just used the Pam baking spray and filled the muffin pan, and they released perfectly. So I would highly recommend the baking spray. The next thing we're doing is adding a dollop of cream cheese. You're just gonna cut a brick of cream cheese. It says to cut it into 16 pieces. I didn't have enough batter for 16 muffins, but just add a little block of cream cheese to the center of the top of the muffins, and they end up turning out sort of like the Starbucks, I don't know, like pumpkin cream cheese muffins, whatever those are called, with the little pumpkin seeds on top. That's my favorite muffin that Starbucks has. It's delicious. So the next thing we're doing is we're making the streusel topping. So you're going to combine 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and now I'm adding 6 tablespoons of cold salted butter. And it does tell you to use your hands to kind of just break up the butter into the dry ingredients, which I thought was a little weird, but it actually worked really, really well. So you kind of want like a sand type consistency, and it's just going to be a streusel topping to put over the top of the muffins. So that's what I'm doing right now. They turned out absolutely phenomenal. So this is definitely a recipe I hope that you check out and you recreate. I will have all of the recipes linked in the description box below. So here are the muffins coming out of the oven. You are going to bake them at 350 for 25 to 30 minutes. The next thing we're making is the honey cinnamon butter. Tegan woke up at this point and she wanted to help, so she's helping me drizzle some honey in. So for this recipe, it is going to be 4 tablespoons of salted butter, 2 tablespoons of honey. Again, we're just guesstimating on the honey, and a 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Butter is something that I debated not making because I felt like the muffins on their own were going to be sweet enough, and I didn't think we were going to need the butter. And you don't, if you don't want to make it. The muffins are delicious on their own, but I do think the butter just took it over the edge and made the muffins even better. So I would recommend making it if you have the time. I do think it doesn't call for softened butter, but I did have a hard time trying to mix it all together. So I would recommend just leaving the butter out for a little bit on the counter, and then that way it softens up and it's a little bit easier to mix together to make the butter. Of course, if you don't have a toddler that you're trying to hold, it might be a little easier to incorporate the butter as well, but she wanted to help. So there's the finished cinnamon butter and then the finished muffin, and I just slathered some on and it was delicious. The next recipe we're making is the spicy chicken Katsu ramen. And actually both this recipe and the pumpkin muffins are from Half Baked Harvest. I've been on a really big Half Baked Harvest kick lately. So if you have never checked out her Instagram or her blog, I would highly recommend getting some inspiration from her for meals. So anyway, the first thing we're doing is chopping up 2 strips of bacon. We're going to add those to the pan once they're cut up and just let them crisp up. The next thing we're doing is we are mincing up 6 cloves of garlic. If you already have the pre-minced garlic, that will work too. I just had fresh garlic that day and I just decided to use that instead. cutting up 2 shallots, and I'm just trying to mince them pretty fine so that there's not just big chunks of the shallot in the ramen. The final thing we're doing is cutting up 1 inch of fresh ginger. The recipe doesn't say to peel it, but every recipe that I've ever had with fresh ginger says to peel it, so that's what we went ahead and did. Next, we're just adding the bacon to a large pot. You are going to want to put it in a pretty large pot because all of the other ingredients other than the chicken are going to get added in, so you'll need quite a bit of room. So next you're going to add the garlic, and then the shallots, and finally the ginger. And then those are just kind of going to get mixed into the bacon fat, and you just want to stir that so that any of the pieces of the bacon are kind of off the bottom of the pan. Next, you're going to add the crushed red pepper flakes. It calls for a half to 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. I don't like spicy things. I literally have said that my toothpaste is too spicy before, so I erred on the side of just a little bit of the red pepper flakes. Then you're going to add 3/4 of a cup of milk. I used regular milk. It says you can use any kind. It recommends coconut milk. The regular milk was good. So then you add 1/4 cup of soy sauce, 1/4 cup of white miso paste, 2 to 4 tablespoons of gochujang, which is a spicy chili paste. So again, I only added 2 tablespoons of that. And then once you've mixed all of that together, you're going to add 8 cups of the chicken broth. I let that go ahead and simmer while I started making the chicken. So the next part, you're going to leave that, just bring it up to a little bit over a simmer so that it's bubbling, and then we'll get started on the chicken. So you're going to need 2 chicken breasts that you cut lengthwise so that it comes out to be 4 chicken cutlets. I forgot to film this part, but the breading for the chicken is just 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs, 3 tablespoons of sesame seeds, and you literally just dredge them in that seasoning. Now I'm adding 4 cups of baby spinach to the broth, and then 4 bricks of ramen noodles. And then you're just going to mix those all together so that the ramen noodles are into the broth, and then a tablespoon of toasted sesame oil goes on top, and you just let that simmer for 5 more minutes so that the noodles cook. Next, you're just going to fry up the chicken. I had actually never fried anything before, so I was a little nervous about this, but it turned out so well. So the next part, you're just going to season it with some salt, and then you just cut up the chicken into slices. Then once the broth is done and the noodles are cooked, you'll just ladle some broth and noodles into a bowl, put some chicken on top, and you can add any toppings you want. I have a soft-boiled egg, some green onions, and sesame seeds. This was absolutely delicious. I had my sister and brother over. They loved it. My husband loved it. So it's definitely a recipe that I would make again. And it wasn't too spicy, but you could definitely add more spice to your taste. So this was a 10 out of 10, would recommend. Next recipe we're making is Instant Pot Chicken Alfredo pasta. First, you're going to put your Instant Pot on saute and add a couple tablespoons of olive oil. Then you're going to cut up 1.5 pounds of chicken breast. I used 2 chicken breasts for this, and just put them in the bottom of the Instant Pot so that they start cooking. You're also going to add salt and pepper to taste. going to add 2 cloves of garlic. I had the pre-minced garlic and I felt like that was good enough for this recipe. So next you're adding 1 teaspoon of dried parsley and 5 cups of low sodium chicken broth. The chicken and broth, you're going to add 12 ounces of penne pasta. The pasta is going to be uncooked when it goes in, and you just want to make sure that all of the pasta noodles are covered in liquid. That'll help so that you don't get that burn notice on the Instant Pot. Once the pasta noodles are completely covered, you're going to turn off the saute button and press the pressure cook or manual button and set the timer for 4 minutes. You're going to set the valve to sealing. It beeps to let you know that it's finished. You want to do a manual release. Then to the finished pasta, you're going to add 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese, a 1/4 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese, and 1 cup of shredded mozzarella. And you're going to go ahead and turn back on the saute function so that it helps to melt all of the cheese. Next, you're going to make a cornstarch slurry. So you're going to use 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and to that you'll add 2 tablespoons of water. This is going to help thicken your sauce and make it a little creamier and more of the Alfredo thickness and texture that you're used to. So I'm just adding the cornstarch mixture to the pasta and going ahead and stirring it up. You just want to stir this until the cheeses are melted and the sauce is thickened to your liking, and then you're ready to serve it. So all of these recipes were absolutely fantastic. I hope you guys give them a try, and I am so glad that you hung out with me today. Let me know if you're going to try any of the recipes, and I'll see you next time.